This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 148 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office, alongside my co-host today from the Yankees Morning Brew, Hector Beauchamp. Hector, I'm going to get to you in just a second.
Yes.
Got a shout out to everyone that's in the room right now. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribing to Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me at Ant Rivera 86, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and like I said, YouTube right here. Subway to Shea. And make sure you're subscribing to the Morning Brew Sports Network. You can catch Yankees Morning Brew. You can catch Mets Evening Brew, which I take part in. And tonight, we have a very special edition of I want to say, a nice little cross promotion. We join forces tonight as the Mets Evening Brew and Yankees Morning Brew team up at 10 for another Subway Series preview. So make sure you check that out. Me, Eddie Presti, Al Cintron representing the Mets, Hector and crew representing those Yankees. Make sure you're following at Yankees Brew, at BrewCrew Sports _. I think I got that all out of the way. So without further ado, Hector, man, how you doing, my friend?
And my guy, I always love being able to come up and talk Yankees and Mets and just baseball with you, my guy. A big fan of your work. Appreciate you and the work that you do in this space. Obviously, what you do on the Mets Evening Brew with Eddie and Al as well. Appreciate you, my guy. I know we crossed paths on social media, and our friend Dexter Henry brought us together. And ever since then, it's like we've been a WWE tag team. We've been on different shows together. We will be on with Dexter Henry as well tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. So shout out to Dexter and linking us up. And it's been awesome, right? But I'm ready to talk baseball. Yankees, Mets, New York City. The rivalry is real.
Yeah, this is always a great time of the year. I do miss it being a 3-game set. That way you have that way you actually have like some type of winner. When you split the 2 series, and if what normally happens is either the team split the series or that the Yankees most likely win the series, because it's very hard for the Mets to try to get over on the Yankees, whether the Mets are good, the Mets are bad. It's just always a tough series for the two to play, but it's always good talking Subway Series. You got the Yankees in first place right now. You have the Mets starting to make this type of surge, and there's just so much news that's been happening over, the past couple of days, over the past couple of weeks. A lot of change in what's been going on with these two teams. So I kind of want to recap with you first what has gone on just in this month alone, just the month alone of June. Mets 13-6. I think they have the best record so far in the month after having one of the worst records and quite possibly the worst record in May. No June swoon this month so far. 3-0 against Washington. They split with Philly in London. They take 2 out of 3 from Miami. They swept San Diego, took 2 out of 3 from Texas, and then now 2 out of 3 from Chicago following what was a 4-game split between the end of May and beginning of June with Arizona. You go to the Yankees, 12-9. They swept Minnesota. They lost that series to the Dodgers. Then they took a nice 3-1 series from Kansas City out of that 4-game set. Then it's been the last 3 series here to Boston, to Baltimore, to Atlanta, and that was all following a sweep of San Francisco in between the months there. What are your takeaways from what you've seen so far with the Yankees this month? I've seen some panic from a lot of the fans on social media. The team's in first place, man. There's a lot to be happy about with what we've seen from this team so far. It's just that these struggles that they've been having come against some of the top teams in baseball. So does that concern you at all?
Well, when you look at it, the Yankees record speaks for itself, right? That's why you try to build yourself a solid lead in the month of April and the month of May, so you can have these hiccups in June going into July, and you can still be in first place, right? Ultimately, this team, I don't think is complete. I don't think this is a World Series caliber team, even if our record is what our record is. I can tell you right now, there's not that many teams out there that are trying to compete for a championship. And at the trade deadline, they're trying to find a new first baseman, try to figure out what they're doing at second base, third base, and you got the catching situation that the Yankees are dealing with. So there's a lot of question marks, particularly to the infield. A lot of question marks to that infield, but the outfield's been solid. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, what more can you want from them? Anthony Volpe, his sophomore season. Alex Verdugo is slumping right now. That's something a lot of Yankee fans aren't talking about. And with the news that came out, Giancarlo Stanton, he's going to be out for 4 weeks. Regardless of our love-hate relationship for Giancarlo Stanton, so far this season, this was the first time he's been injured. He went through the first 2 to 3 months without going on the IL, and it sucks to see because he put so much work in the offseason, and the numbers were speaking for itself. He was basically 18 home runs, 19 home runs on the season. He was top 10 in all the Major League Baseball. When you look at his production from the DH spot, it's something that the Yankees are going to miss tremendously over the next 4 weeks until he comes back. But it's a part of baseball. Every team deals with injuries. Nobody's going to cry about the Yankees and their injuries. I know Met fans aren't going to cry about the Yankees and their injuries right now. So it's up to the front office to try to rebound and get the best product or get the best pieces so they can put them on the field.
Yeah, with regards to how this has gone down as well for the Mets, about 2 weeks ago, it was, what are we going to do at the trade deadline? Is this team going to sell? How are they going to sell? Is Pete Alonso going? It was just a lot of doom and gloom, and rightfully so. The team was playing terribly. Their May this year was like their June swoon last year, and it was, very much a tough pill to swallow for this team. And then they went on this run. Got a lot of offense from JD Martinez, who carried this team for about a week, still playing well, still doing his thing. They got the returns of Francisco Alvarez, which has been a big difference. I don't know if you've seen some of the stats. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're like, I want to say it's like 18-9 or 19-3 or 19-2 with Francisco Alvarez behind the plate. You see the difference he makes with the starting staff. You look at Jose Quintana, his last 2 starts, totally different person than what we've seen from him at the beginning of the season. You had Edwin Diaz return from the IL, and he's gotten a couple of big saves, but we'll get into a major story that has happened with him shortly. This Mets team right now is just, firing all cylinders. They brought up Jose Iglesias, who I said should have been with the team since the beginning of the season. Why you carry Zach Short? Why you carry a guy like Joey Wendell when you have a professional like Jose Iglesias? And you look at his stats throughout his career, whether in the majors, in the minors, the guy is always hitting. And that's something that this team needed. And we're seeing the difference he makes on this offense compared to a guy like right now, Jeff McNeil, who is completely, out of his element right now. So the Mets are coming into this series where they need to be right now. And they need to get to 500. They're only 2 games under, but they needed this stretch. Cause I feel like the Subway Series is always that middle ground. You always think of it being, the All-Star break, but the Subway Series to me feels like that middle ground where like the trajectory of the teams are going to take its course. Every year it just feels like that. And right now I feel really good about, where the Mets are. I'd like them to get over 500. Don't know if they get to 500 in this series because there's some tough pitching matchups coming up. But I'm very excited with what we've seen so far from this team outside of some injuries and, some mental mistakes from this group here and possibly some stupid mistakes that happened on Sunday Night Baseball. But I'm really excited about this Subway Series. I know you got to be excited the way that the Yankees have been playing all year long. One of the top pitching groups and offensive groups so far this season. Aaron Judge is looking like the MVP, that we know he could be and that we've seen him be in the past. I think you got big deal losing Giancarlo Stanton, but what he had provided, you didn't really expect. I didn't really expect that good right now, and it sucks that he had to get hurt. We'll get into him as well a little bit deeper into the show, but this is a good part for both of these teams. This could be either the Mets can gain some ground here, or, the Yankees can get back on track after struggling over the last 3 series.
No, 100%. And it's a unique spot for both teams. Before I continue, I just want to say shout out to your beautiful chat, everybody who's in the building. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Shout out to all you guys, the loyal subscribers to the Subway to Shea podcast. Appreciate you guys. Smack the like button for me and my guy Ant. But no, listen, I think that the Mets, they're playing with house money, right? Everything that you brought up when it comes to Alvarez coming back, when it comes to JD Martinez, Jose Iglesias, now you have 3 guys that you're inserting into the lineup to help Francisco Lindor, to help Pete Alonso, to help Brandon Nimmo. Yeah, Jeff McNeil, he may be lost in the abyss right now, but he still won a batting title. I don't think you wake up out of bed and you mistakenly win a batting title on accident. Maybe Jose Iglesias on the roster will put the fire under the belt, under his ass that he needed. Sorry for cursing, but to put the fire under Jeff McNeil's butt that he needs so he could find something and turn the gear on. I think competition gets the best out of professional players, and adding other pieces to the lineup who can take his spot will probably make him have to reevaluate himself and maybe try to find something on the inside. But regardless, I don't think this team, it's a make or break because Jeff McNeil isn't hitting. Like you said, you got Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, JD Martinez, Francisco Alvarez. This is the one thing that when we first had our first conversation before the season started, I said the Mets and Pete Alonso specifically, he never had anybody behind him to protect him in the lineup. Now that he has JD Martinez, who's a professional hitter, now that he has Francisco Alvarez, who is a young phenom on the rise in Major League Baseball, he has protection behind them finally, and you're seeing the team starting to turn things around. And I don't think it's by accident. I don't think many teams are going to win many games with the lineups that were being put out there without JD Martinez and Francisco Alvarez.
Going to the chat here, G Money Stack says, "What's up, Anthony from Subway Shea podcast, the Mets Evening Brew podcast. How was your weekend, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually?" Well, I took off Friday, had a nice day down the shore. The Mets won big time. I think it was like 12-2 or something like that. I can't remember the score off the top of my head, but they beat the Cubs big on Friday. Saturday, it's like that roller coaster. Then they got whooped by the Cubs on Saturday, and Sunday. They pretty much dominated the game. Luis Severino, who was scheduled to pitch in the Subway Series, was moved up to pitch against the Cubs, and he completely dominated the Cubs for 6 innings. I thought he would have pitched a lot longer, but in that 6th inning, you started to see the pitch count rise. I think he had an over 20 pitch at bat against Cody Bellinger. Couldn't pretty much knocked him out, but he finished the game. He finished the inning. 10 strikeouts for him. Great to see. And then we get to the big problem, which was the 9th inning. And, Edwin Diaz got ejected for the sticky substance. Crew chief Vic Carapazza is the one who ejected him. And his comments after the game, to me, were a little bit, I don't want to say startling, but maybe, I don't know if he was 100% telling the truth in my eyes, because he said, out of 1,000 times that he's done this, he would know if the hands were sticky or not. But here's the problem. He went to go check with the first base ump, the second base ump. Every umpire came in, checked the gloves, checked the hands, checked the belt. Every umpire had to come in and do that. Then he gets ejected from the game. Edwin Diaz, after the game, said he only used the rosin and the dirt and his sweat. And obviously these guys have to grip the ball, but I have a problem with the fact that there doesn't seem to be any uniformity with this rule. Everything is different. Whether it's they let the pitchers go, and you've experienced this with the Yankees, they let him go, wash his hands, and let him come back and continue to pitch. A couple other plays that's happened to. A couple other plays got suspended, like Max Scherzer and Drew Smith. But there has to be some kind of uniform rule where it's just either that's sticky and you're out, or you're going to let him wash his hands and then that's it. Because, you're losing now Edwin Diaz for 10 days. And on top of that, you cannot bring up another pitcher to replace him. So now the Mets are in a bind here, whether it was too sticky because, and obviously they're not saying he used sticky stuff. but the umpires are. And then when they were talking at the mound, it was, he said that it was just too sticky, but it wasn't a sticky. Like there's no middle ground as to what is going on here. And we don't know because we're just watching on TV. You see his hand, you see some stuff on his hand, don't know what it is. But I feel like the umpires need to figure out what the ground rules are for this rule. And it's just up to whatever the umpire feels that day. It just feels like, and that's where the problem I have comes in.
No, I want to echo what you just said, because regardless of Yankee players getting in trouble with this rule, regardless of Met players getting in trouble with this rule, I think, like you said, it needs to be a universal rule. It can't just go on how this umpire feels about the rule in that given day. It needs to be something that's across the board and even. The examples that you brought out, right? Me personally, let them have the sticky substance, right? There's been so many players that said that they would rather a pitcher have the ability to locate the ball instead of being wild, right? And I get like MLB wanting it's more offense. Cool, juice the balls then. If you want more offense, juice the balls. If pitchers are going out there and they're allowed to have extra grip on a baseball, one, you see less injuries because pitchers don't have to torque their arm like they are doing right now. That's one thing. Secondly, a hitter doesn't have to be up there, just like we just saw it over the weekend. Somebody took 100 miles per hour off of their face.
Yeah, I'm in Rosario.
Because pitchers, they have no control of that ball. So Major League Baseball, somebody has to sit down with the union. Major League Baseball, they have to just come to some type of decision and make it a blanket uniform rule across the board. Because if not, you're going to see this, keep on with the different umpires and the different sticky stuff. It's nonsense. I think it's a distraction, and all of this comes down to Trevor Bauer, that Voldemort, trying to give a big FU to Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem is now the results afterward, that there is not only is that there's a 10-game suspension that comes along with this, but you don't even get to replace the pitcher, for his own doing, whether he was in the right or in the wrong. You don't even get to replace him as a team because, maybe the manager doesn't know that he's using this stuff, right? Like maybe this guy is, you just never know. We don't know. That's I think where the problem is. And when you have these umpires going off of their own discretions, and there's a lot of history behind umpires doing this. You see it behind in the strike zone. Look at Angel Hernandez and all the messes he was a part of. Look at was it Jim Joyce was the one who ruined the perfect game for Galarraga in Detroit? I mean, like there's no repercussions, for umpires. And I just wish they would ask the questions. I wish they would have to sit like the rest of the media gets to sit with the players and coaches. I wish the umpires, and we get to see what they have to say during this stuff.
Not just that, Ant, right? If you're Major League Baseball, right, and we've talked about this plenty of times, right? I've come on when you guys have the Met show going on. This is a business at the end of the day. And it's bad for business when you have the Mets and the Yankees about to go into the Subway Series for the first time, and the Mets do not have their all-star closer. That is bad for business. That is bad for TV ratings. That is bad for revenue that could be made when it comes to jersey sales, whatever. It's a bad business move. Major League Baseball, you're trying to expand the sport. You're trying to get more eyes on the sport, and you're trying to make money at the end of the day. Edwin Diaz being suspended before the Subway Series is not a good look. I'm just saying that. And I'm a Yankee fan saying this, right? Regardless of if he's on your team, he could be on the Mets, he could be on the Red Sox, he could be on the Dodgers. I will have the same energy. It doesn't matter if they're on the Yankees or if they're not on the Yankees. I'm upset I won't be able to see Edwin Diaz. One, because if I beat you guys, if the Yankees beat the Mets, I want to beat you at your best. I don't want to beat you because you have some random pitcher who's out there instead of Edwin Diaz. That's one. Secondly, I'm Boricua. I want to be able to see Edwin Diaz pitch over these next two games. I'm not going to be able to see it. So I have a mixed bags of emotions with it. I wish Major League Baseball would get their stuff together. And I want to be able to say that I am not just a Yankee boomer or Homer, right? I want to be able to look at things and be able to break it down the middle and not let my bias overcloud my opinion on a topic.
And you look at just Edwin Diaz in general, right? Off to a terrible start this season. Comes back, has a good couple of outings. In those outings, no one saw any sticky stuff. What would like you try to get into the mental frame of the player? Like, what would change the fact that now he wants to use the sticky stuff? I feel like the umpires and the league has to think of these things. What is the motive for him to wanting to use that? And maybe it was sticky because it was hot outside. Maybe it was, a little bit of the rosin. David Cohn explained it perfectly on Sunday Night Baseball last night. I love David Cohn. David Cohn is one of my favorite, announcers and analysts out there right now. And I think that he got it right in saying, even if he just used the dirt and the rosin, the can color still changes to these things. So like, I don't know, man, this is just a frustrating thing to deal with. Like you said, you're trying to promote the game of baseball. Now you don't have one of your best players out there to play. And it would be different to me if everyone was being treated the same way for a rule, like it should be, but it's not going down like that. And that's the frustrating thing.
Like you said, it's just different umpires with their different preferences, with their different interpretation of the rules. And David Cohn, he laid it out perfectly, right? It's humid, it's hot. If he has suntan lotion, if he has any type of bug repellent, once that mixed with sweat, once that mixed with any type of sand or dirt, you're going to be able to get extra traction. I don't think it's a big deal. He's not out there. He doesn't look like the kid from the Little Giants. He's not out there with tar going back and forth on his chest or can't open his eyes out. It's just literally chemical mixtures. It's science at the end of the day. If Major League Baseball have an issue with it, go talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson and complain to scientists about it. This has nothing to do with the players.
Yeah, and to me too, like, okay, what does it determine that this guy's going to get his hands washed? Like, okay, you can go wash your hands. What determines that?
Exactly.
Is it because he only has a little bit of sticky stuff? Like, what is no one has asked these questions to these umpires that I need to know. Like, if I was in the media right now, that's a question that I want to know. What are you determining that says, hey, this guy can go wash his hands, come back out, and we're going to try this again?
Yeah.
Besides there being there, the you are absolutely out right from the start.
Yeah. Or like if it's a starting pitcher, if you catch them in between innings, just give the starting pitcher, hey, this is your one time to go wash your hand. You get a one-time rule to go wash your hand. Go wash your hand. If it's a reliever who's coming into the game, you're checking him as he's coming in. If his hands are sticky, you could just send them right to the dugout. It just takes an extra 2 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes at the most. They got to run back and forth to wash their hands. Come on. It's ridiculous. It's the whole automatic strike zone conversation. It's when it comes to these umpires, and this is the one thing I always tell people: go on MLB. It's a separate independent organization that they rate and give scorecards to the umpires. Right? It's MLBscorecards.com. The next day, right after the game, you could check the grades of the umpires. Apparently, Major League Baseball, they want their umpires to be at a 95% accuracy for these games. So far this year, MLB umpires are averaging 91, 92 at best. So even when it comes to the umpires across the board, they are below average of the standard that Major League Baseball wants.
And the thing is too, like, if they want them, if they're not reaching that 95, what is the repercussions? Like, nothing is happening because these guys aren't. I mean, I know Angel Hernandez is now retired, but we've had to deal with that guy for now over 30 something years in baseball. And he's been an awful umpire. You got some bad ones out there. CB Buckner's another one that's been terrible. There's just, I don't know, they're just taking away from the game. And that's the frustrating thing. I don't want to be too much of a complainer about this Edwin Diaz thing. Maybe there was something sticky. Maybe we do find out there was an illegal substance used. I don't know if he was telling the truth or not. What I do know is that the rule is not being used the same way for every player in Major League Baseball. And I'm not saying it's a thing against the Mets. I know a lot of people have said that, but I've seen instances where, like we've said, they let the guy wash his hands, he gets another opportunity, or he's just completely out. And when they're completely out, we're talking about a suspension that can affect 10 games, because not only are you using one of your best pitchers, but you can't bring anyone up to replace him. So you're down a man, and that stinks.
It's just in 2024, fans, they know more names of the umpires now than when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I hardly knew the names of the umpires. Probably that was because of my age, also 12, 13, 14, watching the game. I wasn't paying attention to the umpires, more the players and the coaches. But it seems like now in 2024, you got 12-year-old kids, 11-year-old kids on social media talking, look how bad Adrian Hernandez was. It's like, kid, he just retired. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and it even blends into other rules that we have, like between Colorado and Washington this past weekend, where the game got determined because the pitch clock violation. He was halfway through his windup already. Like, I think at some point, I don't know. I feel like they're trying to put all these rules down, but now the umpires are having even way more control than they've had in the past. And now they want to get rid of them.
It's a Napoleon power trip complex when it comes to these umpires. They see how much money these players are making, and at the end of the day, they feel like that you cannot play Major League Baseball without the umpires. And that's the mindset that I think these umpires have, when in reality, you can't play these games without any of the players. And when it comes down to it, you got to ask, who is more important, the umpires or the players? And I'm sorry to just crap on the umpires, but when it's all said and done, you need the players in order to play the game. Umpires can be replaced like that. You cannot go out there and find your next version of Aaron Judge. You cannot go out there and find your next version of Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Francisco Alvarez, Juan Soto. You can't do that. You could go out there. I see a bunch of Angel Hernandez at the softball field right now in Washington Heights. I'm looking at them as we speak. There's a bunch of Angel Hernandez's out there. It's not that many Aaron Judge or Francisco Lindors out there that you could just replace like that.
No, there's absolutely not. And like, it's going to be a frustrating couple of almost 2 weeks now for the Mets without Edwin Diaz, but they have been playing a lot of time. He was on the 15-day IL. They were playing a lot of time without Edwin Diaz. This situation may be a little different because he can't be replaced, but figuring the fact that they know they've done this before, they may be able to get through this with a little finagling with their roster, because they got the 2 games here, a day off, and then I think it's 17 games in a row that they're going to play. So who knows? Maybe one of the starters goes to the bullpen. Maybe we see more guys getting more innings. You got the Daniel Nunez in there. You got Drew Smith, who I hope is not hurt, because I don't know if it looked like he was hurt when he called the training staff towards the end of that game. You got Jake Diekman, who I really don't want closing games. Reed Garrett can possibly close games. There's possibilities. So the Mets just got to stick with what they're doing. They got to get longer length from their starting pitchers, and they got to get that offense going. And hopefully they can do that as this season goes forward.
You want you want Clay Holmes because he sucked. Clay, this is the thing about Clay Holmes, is that when you look at his numbers on paper, Clay Holmes looks like a top 3 closer in Major League Baseball. When you look at his numbers, when you watch him pitch, this man, I had my blood pressure. I don't even deal with high blood pressure, but it climbs through the roof whenever I have to deal with Clay Holmes. We Yankee fans, we call him Cardiac Clay, and that's a reason, right? Because he walks the tightrope. He could get guys out, but the issue with Clay Holmes is he is not a strikeout pitcher, and you need that as a closer. If you have a closer, they have to be a lights out strikeout closer. In the postseason, ground balls are able to find their way and trickle into the outfield. In the postseason, no matter what happens, it's just baseball gods or baseball magic. It's the ball will either find you if you're playing out of position. The ball will either find its way to the outfield if you have a pitcher who's not a strikeout pitcher. And Clay Holmes, to me, is not a closer in 2024 Major League Baseball. He'll be an awesome seventh inning guy, phenomenal eighth inning guy, but as a lights out strikeout closer, the Yankees are 22nd when it comes to their bullpen and strikeouts, and that's because of their closer.
Even looking at a Michael Tonkin, who was got a bad rap on our team, didn't really get an opportunity, I'll say that, for the situations he was brought into, but has pitched pretty much lights out for you guys. He's been pitching pretty well. When I think of Clay Holmes, the situation kind of, no pun intended, hits home with me because, as a fan of a team that has one of the greatest players at a position in their history, it's really hard to compare or get another guy to kind of replace that, right? Like, I'm a Devils fan. It's really hard to replace Martin Brodeur. I mean, he's one of the greatest goalies of all time, top 3 possibly. The same thing goes with Mariano Rivera, right? Mariano Rivera is the greatest closer of all time. There's no one else that's better. And it's going to be hard to replace that guy. So you're going to get relievers. And even, every team is looking for that Mariano Rivera. But when you watch during the postseason, you see these great closers have great seasons. And then once the postseason comes, they're a shell of themselves. Whereas a guy like Mariano Rivera comes in and he's stone cold and he's untouchable. So I understand the frustration with fans that they have with Clay Holmes.
Yeah, and one thing that doesn't get mentioned when we have the conversation about Mariano Rivera and not that many people can replace him, when Mariano got injured during the middle of the season or at the beginning of the season in Kansas City and was done for the rest of the season, there was an unspoken hero for the Yankees or somebody who stepped in that did an amazing job. I think he got 30 to 40 saves that season. He was an all-star as well. He got a big contract. Rafael Soriano replaced Mariano Rivera, and he went into that role and he fit seamlessly like a glove. You would have never thought Mariano Rivera got injured. Granted, he never had the same postseason success like Mariano Rivera, but since Mariano, the only other closer that's been lights out was Rafael Soriano. Aroldis Chapman, he had his little heyday or whatever. When it comes to Chapman, he gave up big home runs in the postseason. Andrew Miller, he was here for a season and a half before we got rid of him. So Mariano, you can't replace greats, right? You can't replace Derek Jeter. You can't replace Mariano. You can't replace Mike Piazza. There's just so many great players. You just can't replace them just like that. It's just hard to find the replacement or the second person that comes after them. Right, so it's tough. I see somebody in the comment section asks, "Are the Yankees going to trade for Mason Miller?" If I'm Brian Cashman, I'm staying far away from Mason Miller. That's a Tommy John surgery waiting to happen. If you see his injury history, he's a starting pitcher that Oakland has in the bullpen so he could build up his innings so they can move him to the starting rotation. He has already had a UCL strain. He has already had a shoulder cuff strain. He has already had different elbow injuries. I'm staying far away from Mason Miller. I'm not giving him my top prospects for that. I don't think any team should give up their top prospects for Mason Miller.
If there's any reliever, and I said this on Mets Evening Brew, that I would be looking into is I'm calling up Miami to look into Tanner Scott.
Yeah.
That's a guy that I would definitely, the Mets need a lefty. And I'm pretty sure the Yankees would be interested as well in getting a guy like Tanner Scott, who's closed in Miami too.
We need a lefty coming out of the pen because Caleb Ferguson and Victor Gonzalez, they both suck. We got them from the Dodgers. They're both horrible. I always make fun of them on Yankees Morning Brew. But yeah, Tanner Scott, not only because he's a lefty, but because he pitched in the AL East as well. So it's not like he's coming into new grounds and he has to figure it out. He pitched against Baltimore. He's pitched against the Yankees. He pitched against Tampa Bay. So he has history in the AL East. So that's why I want Tanner Scott. And he'll be cheaper than a Mason Miller was. And again, if you're the Oakland A's, I don't think the Oakland A's are just this stupid, right? Yes, they may be run horribly, but if you have a young kid like Mason Miller, why are you trying to trade him? That's an alarm to me. That goes to show me that team doesn't believe in his longevity, and they think that there's some red flags in his injury history. If I'm any other team, if Oakland is trying to trade away a young phenom, the young best pitching prospect they developed over the past 5 years, I'm running away, and I'm putting them on do not. I'm putting them on the block list, and I'm sending every phone call to voicemail.
It also gets masked as, Oakland stinks. They're going to sell. So that's how they get some of the teams to buy into to something like that. But when you talk about a guy needing Tommy John surgery with the delivery and stuff, you kind of want to stay away from those type of pitchers because a lot of teams get enough of that. So we'll see what happens there. But the Mets, not the Mets, the Yankees did make a trade with the Oakland A's, bringing in. And you know what? I'm going to take your buddy to task here, Keith McPherson, because he talked all off season about how the Mets pick up the Yankees scraps. And here we go. And the Yankees are picking up J.D. Davis, man. J.D. Davis is a New York Yankee. Come on down.
Shout out my guy Keith McPherson, KM to AM. Guys, go check him out on WFAN. He did a dope Subway Series preview as well. I think it was on NBC. Shout out to my guy Keith, because he always shows me love whenever I see him at Yankee Stadium. Good guy. He's really an ambassador for the New York Yankees, whether the Yankees gave him that title or not. Shout out to my guy Keith. But no, you're right. This entire offseason, that's what Keith was saying about the Mets picking up former Yankees. And look at us. Now the Yankees were picking up J.D. Davis. But let's be real. The Yankees right now are trying to find anyone to fill in the holes that they need. Third base is a hole right now. First base is a hole. I know Ben Rice has come up and he's looked solid, but are we really going to trust a rookie trying to win a championship? I'm not too sure. Gleyber Torres at second base. I don't know what happened to Gleyber Torres. I'm not sure if the Monstars from Space Jam came and took his talent, but he's a question mark as well. And our catching situation, the Yankees got exposed over the past two weeks. Our catchers cannot throw anybody out going to second base or going to third base. When you look at the Yankees numbers, the reason why the Yankees catching numbers look good when it comes to throwing guys out is because their pitchers are great at stopping the run game and picking guys off of first base or second base. So that's why the Yankees catching numbers, it gets messed around with and looks better than what it actually is. But in reality, the Yankees catcher is Jose Trevino. He can't throw out anybody to save his life. I'm sorry. Maybe Daniel Velgabout could probably get thrown out by Jose Trevino. Besides that, Jose Trevino, he looks like a shell of his former self when he won the Platinum Glove a couple of seasons ago.
Junior Swingman saying, once the Yankees get a good second baseman and a good third baseman, they will be tough to beat.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I said, I can get away with our rookie Ben Rice at first base, even though he was a catcher and now he converted to a first baseman. I could get away with him at first base because he has shown really good plate discipline. I think he's gotten 7 hits so far. In the big leagues, 3 of those hits were off of lefty pitching. So he's done well against left-handed pitching, lefty on lefty, as a young rookie first baseman. That's good. But it's third base and second base. DJ LeMahieu, since coming back from his injury, he has yet to record an extra base hit. We're going on more than a month. That right there is alarming to me. Gleyber Torres is his defense. Gleyber Torres, he can hit. He's going to get you some home runs. He's going to be able to walk and get on base. But it's his defense in tough situations. Clay Holmes, he had a blown save. I think it was the first game against Atlanta. Gleyber Torres botched the double play in that 9th inning. That runner came around to score. Atlanta won that game. You cannot rely on Gleyber Torres' defense in the postseason. His defense will be exposed. I said it earlier. The baseball gods will be the baseball gods. The ball will find you if you're out of position or if you're a bad defender in the postseason.
I will give you this. You're getting J.D. Davis at the right time. Last 15 games, he's batting .293, got 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 5 walks, and an .835 OPS. So maybe he could provide some type of spark in the middle of that lineup for them. But we'll see what happens. I want to get into this series.
If I could just say just one more thing about J.D. Davis.
Yeah.
When you look at his numbers, when J.D. Davis, when he's put on teams that have good players around him, J.D. Davis performs really well. Remember a few seasons ago when the Mets traded him to San Francisco, that second half of the season, the boy hit over 300 when they went to the postseason with San Francisco. I'm not saying he's going to come over here and have the same impact Yoenis Cespedes had on the Mets when they made their World Series run, but whatever you could get out of J.D. Davis is better than whatever you're getting out of DJ LeMahieu right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see what he can do as we move forward here. Once again, I'm here with my guy, Hector Beauchamp from Yankees Morning Brew and the Morning Brew Sports Network. Make sure you're following them on Twitter. Make sure you're following them on YouTube and like this video as well as subscribe to Subway to Shea. We're going to get to this series coming up, this 2-game set. I got a tale of the tape here for the Mets and the Yankees. Mets coming in at 37-39, fourth in the National League East. I think they're only a half game behind Washington right now. The Yankees 52-28, first in that says the NL East, but it's meant to say the AL East. I forgot to fix that. But you look at the offensive comparisons to each other, and batting average wise, pretty much close to being the same. Mets have a 248 batting average. Yankees 2 points better, 250. Obviously, the Yankees are just crushing it when it comes to home runs, 115 to the Mets 90. RBIs as well, 381 to the Mets 338. Stolen bases is where the Mets have that, 54 to the Yankees 37. And OPS 725 for the Mets, 761 for the Yankees. And obviously the pitching is no question. The Yankees are in charge there. 3.22 ERA to the Mets 409. They lead in strikeouts as well, 681 to the Mets 671. And the Mets are now, I don't think, in the lead anymore with walks. I think they're in third. Which is a lot better than being in first, but they have 289 walks to the Yankees 267. And you go to the pitching probables coming up for this series. David Peterson in game 1, 3-0 with a 3.97 ERA, going up against Garrett Cole, who made his debut in his last game, 4.50 ERA. And then you got Sean Manaea in game 2, 4-3 with a 4.16 ERA, going up against Luis Gil, who's 9-2 with a 2.77 ERA. I would be lying to you, Hector, if I did not say that this pitching matchups favor the Yankees here. They do. I've never 100% fully trusted David Peterson. Sean Manaea is it's an interesting pitcher because he'll have a game where he gives up say 4 or 5 runs, but then he'll throw 10 strikeouts to boot there. And some innings he's dominant. So I just don't know what I'm going to get from my starters. Kind of have a feeling, even with Garrett Cole coming back and this being his second game, you know what you're getting from Garrett Cole. Luis Gil had that one really bad outing, the last outing, which now I expect him to just dominate the Mets for some reason. But, what matchup are you looking forward to most out of these two here?
The Luis Gil matchup, right? To see what he's going to do after that hiccup he had. Because, this is the one thing that I was worried about with Luis Gil. He was having an amazing season so far in the absence of Garrett Cole and his injury. But I knew a hiccup was going to happen. It's just, when was the hiccup going to happen? And it was against the Baltimore Orioles. He got it out of his system. I'm looking for him to bounce back. What is he going to do against the Mets? And their lineup, when you're looking at the Mets, they're a good fastball hitting lineup, so that favors you guys because Luis Gil, all he throws is his sinker and his changeup, and he has his slider that he mixes up there, but he's predominantly a fastball hitter. That's why the Baltimore Orioles, the 2 starts that he struggled this season, I would say the start and a half, because his first start against Baltimore, he was lights out. It's his second start against Baltimore. They knocked him around. Baltimore is a fastball hitting team. They hit the fastball better than any other team in Major League Baseball. And that right there, I knew probably wasn't going to be a good matchup for Luis Gil. Just like the New York Mets are a good fastball hitting team. Let's see what happens. The make it happen Mets, they've been playing a lot different since JD Martinez and Francisco Alvarez has been in the lineup. And especially since Grimace became you guys' new mascot. You guys are playing with house money at the moment. One thing I got to tell Met fans, I know a lot of Met fans, they want to sell at the trade deadline. It is a business at the end of the day. If there's an opportunity to get that third wild card spot, best believe Steve Cohen is going to try to get that third wild card spot just so he can get that playoff revenue, bonus money, that commercial revenue that comes in. He's going to want that, even if it's a 1-game wild card or a 2-game wild card series, whatever it is, he's going to want that. So I wouldn't try to sell at the trade deadline with the new system, with the new wild card team. You never know. Any team can get hot and can make it to the World Series or make it to the championship series, whether that's the ALCS or the NLCS. Oh, you're muted, Ant.
I'll say this. It's so much easier to sell in this type of atmosphere than it is to buy, right? Because there's still so many teams that are in it. If you're just going into the mindset of selling, then you might as well just sell. But with all these teams in the hunt for the playoffs, not all of them want to sell. They want what you were talking about. They want to get that revenue money. They want to be in it to get into the postseason. So we'll see what happens there. Before I let you go, a couple quick matchups I want to go through with you. There's not too many. First off, JD Martinez against Garrett Cole's got 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and a 738 OPS in 40 at bats against against Garrett Cole. And then Aaron Judge. You look at Aaron Judge against Sean Manaea, 417 batting average, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, and a 1.417 OPS when you go with those two.
I'm calling it right now. That second game against Saul Manaea, that's the game J.D. Davis is going to play, and J.D. Davis is going to get a hit, because if there's one thing that J.D. Davis does, he hits left-handed pitching. What has been the Yankees' biggest struggle this year? Hitting left-handed pitching. So having J.D. Davis could definitely help out the Yankees from that side of it. I'm looking for J.D. Martinez. When he was with the Red Sox, he was a Yankees killer. He always hit well against the Yankees, whether that was at Yankee Stadium or I was at Fenway Park. He's a professional hitter. He is hot right now, so I expect him to have 1 home run in this series. Whether that's off Garrett Cole or Luis Hill, I don't know, but I'm putting money on J.D. Martinez to go yard against the Yankees this series, just because he has been a Yankees killer his entire career, dating back to when he was with the Detroit Tigers when he first came up.
Got a couple of players to watch here. Aaron Judge, like I spoke about before, but over his last 11 games, 268, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, a double, 3 walks, and a 918 OPS. I was going to put Giancarlo Stanton on here because he was actually doing a whole lot better.
Oh, yeah.
He was the best player on the team for the last 15 days, but he is out. So that's all I got for the Yankees, because the rest of the offense has seemed to have been struggling a lot. But Aaron Judge keeps carrying along. For the Mets, Brandon Nimmo. He's got 364 batting average, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 2 doubles, 4 walks, and a 1.11 OPS in 11 games. I also threw in Francisco Alvarez, 361 batting average, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 3 doubles, 4 walks, and a 1.036 OPS. And I threw in Francisco Lindor in there as well, because he's leading off. He's got 4 stolen bases on top of having 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 5 doubles, and 4 walks as well. So those are the players to watch in this series. Hector, man, I appreciate you for joining me and being a part of this. It's always fun having you on this. And I will see you tonight, my friend, for the crossover.
Yes, sir. Just for you guys out there, follow me on social media, whether that's Instagram or Twitter. I go to a lot of autograph signings. I'm going to one right now in New Jersey for Oswaldo Cabrera. I was at a Doc Gooden one a couple of weeks ago. So even though I'm a Yankee fan, whether it's the Yankees, whether it's the Mets, as long as it's New York sports, I'm going to show up and I'm going to represent and I'm going to show love, no matter who you are, no matter what type of fan you are. Always look out for me. Look out for me during the Subway Series. You can run up to me, say hi. We can take some pictures. It's all good. And always love rocking with you, my guy.
All right, my friend. I'll see you later tonight.
Later, brother. Let's go. Shout out to Subway's To Shea, baby.
All right. Thank you, Hector. Appreciate you, my friend. And we're going to wrap up this podcast real soon here. I appreciate everyone for tuning in to Subway To Shea. It was a lot of fun always doing this with Hector. Great Yankee fan. He's my number one go-to when it comes to talking about this, because you're going to get good analysis and fair analysis from him always. So it's always fun having him be a part of this. And I appreciate you guys all for tuning in here today. That wraps it up for the Subway To Shea podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X, I guess it is now, at Subway To Shea. Follow me on X at Ant Rivera 86 as well. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to it on YouTube as well. I keep saying that multiple times. But that wraps it up here. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. And we will definitely be seeing you with maybe in a couple of days. Maybe we'll come back Friday. Maybe we'll recap this series. We'll definitely have a series preview for the weekend series that's coming up as well. But shout out to all you guys. You are all amazing and fun to be around and talk with and chat with. So you guys have a great rest of your day. If anyone's watching Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, I implore you to do it. I watch baseball and I love baseball, but the best playoffs is definitely in hockey. And Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals is something you probably should be watching because there's no baseball today. So make sure you're checking out that. And then at 10 o'clock, you can check me out with Hector Beauchamp, with my guys Eddie Presti and Al Cintron of WFEN, as we will be doing a crossover of the Mets Evening Brew and Yankees Morning Brew to preview the Subway Series. Again, a lot more topics, a lot more to talk about as we get into everything. Everybody, take care of yourself. Have a great weekend. And let's, at the very least, split this Subway Series. But if we could take 2 games, I would 100% appreciate that. But for now, appreciate you all. Everyone take care. Let's go Mets.